Happy New Year. I hope you all had a great evening of fun as now we're in 2017. And New Year's is always an interesting time for me. I don't really do resolutions anymore, but when I did, they were always horrible failures. They always were about weight loss. And I thought, since today is New Year's Day, it's January 1st, I would share with you some of my resolutions, or at least how they failed and why they failed. I've been trying to lose weight, as folks who've been watching my videos know, for an awfully long time. Over the last 4 years, I've lost 145 pounds, which is awesome. It's the first time something's really worked for me. But I just remember all those resolutions of trying to lose weight and nothing would come about it, or I would have a little bit of success and then boom, a lot of failure. So here goes with my top 10 reasons why my resolutions for weight loss always failed. Number 10 wasn't really specific enough. I'd always resolved to lose weight. Well, that can mean anything. And so what I found was it never really worked because my heart wasn't really in it. I just told myself I needed to lose weight. But when I finally kicked it into high gear and losing weight, I was more or less focused on making goals. So instead of, I want to lose weight, I would instead, I want to lose 10 pounds in 3 months. That's something specific and I can actually act on. And that's where it really started clicking for me, is when I started thinking in more specific terms. Number 9, not being realistic in your resolution. It's one thing to say, I want to lose 100 pounds. That's a big number and it's really hard to do. But saying you want to lose 100 pounds in 4 months, oh, that really is just not the smart way to go about it. Weight loss, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So that was one of the mistakes I always made. I always put some unrealistic number with an unrealistic timetable, and I was setting myself up for failure. So you want to avoid doing something like that. Number 8. Setting too big of a goal. Sometimes you can bite off more than you can chew, and you just don't want to do that. 4 years ago, when I started down this journey, I remember on New Year's Day, I basically hit the scales at 325. I was mortified, and then I resolved I was going to lose 200 pounds, and that's it. I was going to lose that. I didn't set a time frame, but I was going to lose 200 pounds. And then immediately afterwards, I thought, what am I doing? I'm a failure. I can't do that. It's just impossible. All the negative thoughts started flooding through my head. The best way to approach it, which is what I learned about a few days later, I started thinking about it much differently. I started breaking that number down. It wasn't about focusing on the 200 pounds. Instead, I was going to focus on taking baby steps. So it was 5% of my weight, which meant 16 pounds. That was much more manageable and doable, and I could focus on that and build in healthy habits and all the things I needed to do working towards that 16. And then once I hit the 16, then I moved to, let's do 10% of my total weight. So that was an additional, that was a total of 32 pounds lost. So I was already halfway there to the 32 by losing my first 5%. So it became this march where I set up very specific milestones that I wanted to reach, but they were incremental. They were small. They were small little bites that I could achieve, and I could build on that success. And that success gave me confidence. But starting off with that big 200 number, oh good Lord, that was a mistake I consistently made whenever I was trying to lose weight. Number 7, not wanting to do the heavy lifting. And this one was one of my hard ones to try to overcome. And what I mean by not willing to do the heavy lifting is when you're trying to lose weight, there isn't a magic pill. There isn't a special, 30-day thing, elixir out there, or a 30-day diet and the weight will magically melt off. Those types of things, yeah, you can lose the weight, but most likely it's all gonna come back on. I had to do the hard work, meaning, okay, I had to figure out how I was gonna lose the weight. I researched what type of eating style would be best for me. I became my own little science experiment. And then I read a lot of books, but science books for me, instead of just these quick weight loss books. Reading Why We Get Fat, which is a science book about how your body works when you eat, was the most enlightening thing I read. And that gave me the path, and it let me know, okay, these are the things I needed to do. I started, I looked at tracking my food, keeping a food diary. That ain't easy. I started looking at it from the standpoint of giving up the idea that exercise was tied into weight loss. Exercise is healthy, but it has nothing to do with weight loss. And my doctor even told me not to exercise until I lost the first 50 pounds. Doing something like that and in trying to eat right, well, it's then, I had to build healthy habits. I had to minimize bad habits. That takes a lot of time and a lot of work. Weight loss is 95% food, but it's 100% mental. And that is really important. And that's what I mean by the heavy lifting. It's looking at yourself, understanding what were my triggers. I'm a person, if I'm bored, I tend to, start chewing on something because it takes away the boredom a little bit, but it's a very temporary solution. I also discovered I was a stress eater. Good Lord, I never thought that about myself. I just never knew it. What other bad habits I had to sort of take on too. So you really have to put into the work. There isn't anyone else who's going to lose the weight for you. You have to do it yourself. And once I accepted that and I took on that responsibility and all the accountability, I had to be accountable to myself. That's another part of the heavy lifting. Once I started doing all that, things just started falling into place and it got easier as I went. Doesn't mean I didn't stumble. I did. It's not a straight line when you're losing weight. There's a lot of valleys and a lot of peaks. And sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That happens. But as long as you're doing the work and you're just trying to be consistent, you're putting in the effort, that's what's really important here. Number 6, I was always focused on trying to be perfect. I had to get everything right when I was making my resolution and then trying to, lose the weight. I had to be perfect about everything. So, I was counting calories or points. I did a lot of Weight Watchers in my day. And I was making sure, measuring everything out. I was trying to be exact, be perfect. And the problem is, if you're trying to be perfect, you won't lose the weight. It really is that simple. No one is perfect. That meant I couldn't go out to have lunch with a friend of mine because she wanted to go out because, oh my God, she picked a place we went to and they don't have anything I can eat, quote unquote. Well, it's just learning how to, deal with that. And that happens sometimes. It's like the holidays. If you're going to a friend's house for dinner or to a family's house for Christmas and you're having Christmas meal there and they're not, necessarily healthy eaters, that's okay. You just come up with strategies to deal with that. Or you eat, you be smart enough about, not overeating, but don't worry about perfection because it just won't work. So if you're trying to be perfect, you're never going to reach your goal. So just give that up. That's so important. Number 5. You don't know really why you want to lose the weight. Now, we all say we want to lose weight. Everyone does. But I think for me, every year I tried, and it was mostly because I just had this negative thought in my head that I'm too heavy. I just didn't feel good about myself. And it was coming from a negative view of trying to lose weight. I had a negative opinion about myself. And for me, what really clicked was when I stopped focusing on the weight. And it became about my health. I had so many health issues. I was on blood pressure medication. I was a pre-diabetic. Insulin resistance is raging through my body, amongst other things. I had I was a candidate for a heart attack. And what I needed to do was focus on my health, not worry about the weight. Once I stopped worrying about and fretting about the dang scale, I found a purpose for what I needed to do, and it stopped being about weight loss and it became about reclaiming my health. I wanted to be healthy. So I set out specific goals. I wanted to be off my blood pressure medication. I wanted to get, my blood sugar in check. I did not want to become a type 2 diabetic. I wanted to look at it from the standpoint of I wanted to be able to do things physically that I wasn't able to do, like walk to my mailbox without being in pain. So once it became about my health, I was very focused. It's once you find that motivation and why you want to do this, that becomes your passion and it makes you latch onto that because that's what you're focusing on. If you're trying to lose weight because your mom is telling you you're overweight or your spouse, your husband, your wife, whoever is telling you really need to lose weight and that's why you're doing it, it ain't going to work. You really have to do it for yourself. And for me, I had to put myself first. And once again, I found that motivation, everything just sort of clicked, snapped right into place. Number 4, I never had a plan. Again, I'd make these resolutions and I didn't have any specific goals. I didn't have anything to sort of measure and track. I just wanted to lose weight. But once you say that, once you figure out, if you start getting specific, you can actually create an action plan. How are you going to do it? Well, you know, is it as simple as just eating healthy? Well, what does that mean? Is it as simple as giving up sodas? Is it something that maybe I'm going to try giving up sugar, or maybe I'm going to give up alcohol for a period of time and see if that helps. You got to have an action plan. So I would walk into New Year's Day, and then the very next day, I'm like, okay, I'm back to eating my old ways, or back to sort of, oops, I screwed up, it's over with. But because I never followed through on a plan, I never sort of figured out what it is I needed to do to get to my end goal, or, you know, to accomplish my resolution. A plan, it can be as simple as you want. Anything too elaborate, it's probably not going to work. It's going to be a little bit harder to do. But again, something just as simple as, you know, I'm going to lose weight, and I'm going to give up those sodas I always have every day. Something like that can make a real dent in your health, and certainly in the scale too, if that's what your primary concern is. So having a plan, so important. Number 3, I wasn't having any fun. Weight loss is not a punishment. If you're trying to do it, getting healthy shouldn't be a punishment. You should inject fun and have joy when you're doing it. It can be so stressful, and that stress can just make those negative thoughts come in. And for me, I'd always be so focused and so uptight about it, and so militant in my thinking about what I had to do, and again, trying to be perfect, that I never enjoyed the ride, so to speak. So this time around, I made sure that, you know, once I started getting to a point physically where I could do things, my husband and I would go out hiking out in the woods because I really enjoyed doing that. I set a goal because I wanted to ride a bike again. I hadn't been on a bike for nearly 20 years. You know, I achieved that. I started looking at doing mud runs, or you know, my ultimate goal is to do a Tough Mudder. I ended up doing a smaller event here, about a 5-mile mud race, and I had a blast doing that. Those things are just so much fun to do, and it's something I never thought I could do. And along with that, you know, to me that's fun, is actually figuring out what works with me. Having, you know, I mentioned before, it's like a science project. So I'll try different experience. Like in January, I'm doing a 30-day no alcohol challenge, just because, you know, it's a challenge. I'm pushing myself. Those types of things are fun to me. I set up treats for myself. So if I accomplish something, a goal, maybe it's something as simple as I run 3 days a week, or I actually go out and I'm going to go out to dinner, but I'm going to order very specific things, so I'm going to stay on track. You know, if I do those types of things, then I reward myself, not with food, but it could be something like a pedicure, a manicure. I'm going to reward myself. I'm going to buy myself a new, you know, workout outfit, whatever it may be. It makes it more fun and more interesting. And if you're not having fun with it, it ain't going to work. If if you don't like doing aerobics and you think you've got to do aerobics to lose weight and you don't like it, you ain't going to do it. You're going to stop. That's the thing about when you start injecting fun into your weight loss process. Number 2, and I talked a little bit about this before, it's you don't have a spark. There is no desire to do this. You're just sort of going through the motions when you make your resolution. And if you don't, again, it's 100% mental, 95% food when it comes to weight loss. If you aren't passionate about it, you have to find a passion to get yourself healthy again, whatever that may be. But it comes from within you, and once you find that spark, nothing's going to be able to stop you. That's so important. All right, the number 1 reason my resolutions have always failed in the past was I didn't believe in myself. I never thought I could do it. Deep down inside, I always had all the negative thoughts because I failed so many times before. And if you don't have faith in yourself, if you don't believe that you can do it, you're not going to be able to. And that's the most important thing, is you've got to build up confidence about what you can do. So that's why it's really important not to have a big old grand goal of, you know, like I did, 200 pounds. You know, but if you just start small, you build up that confidence. And then you start realizing you can do these things. And it's not just about the weight loss. You can actually go out and, you know, go run a 5K, or you can actually do a marathon that you've always secretly desired to do. Or you want to go biking, you know, doing a grand bike tour of 50 miles. Those things are always within your reach, but you have to build up the confidence in yourself. And I think with weight loss, I know for myself, I had been overweight for more than 20 years. And it's so hard to build up any type of confidence when you do the yo-yo dieting, when you're going up and down, because you think more about the failures than you do about the successes. And you need to celebrate those successes. And again, because that helps you build up that confidence. You know you can do something. And it's also about celebrating the small successes too. That helps build up the confidence. I did a little jig in my house because the first time I could cross my legs in more than 25 years. Something that simple without using my hands to move one leg over the other. You know, being able to use a smaller, not using the handicap stall in a restroom at a restaurant. I could go into the smaller stall without feeling like, you know, I was some type of contortionist. You know, being able to ride on an airplane without worrying about the seat belt, being able to buckle the seat belt, or having to put the armrest up because it was more comfortable for me. Those type of things are huge successes, and we don't think about it because it happens, you know, it just sort of happens, and we don't really think about those things. So all these little steps, all these little things build up confidence, and that's what you have to find in yourself, because if you believe you can do it, you're going to be able to do it, and nothing can stop you. I know that's what happened to me 4 years ago, and it's been tough. The last 6 months have been tough, considering my surgery and the cancer treatment and all that stuff. But I found that spark again. I had lost it for about 6 months, but I found it again. And I can't stress that enough. You've got to believe that you can do anything. And once you find it, trust me, nothing is going to stop you, no matter any naysayer, anyone in your family who may be sabotaging you purposely or not really on purpose, whatever it may be, you're going to be able to achieve whatever it is that you want when it comes to your resolutions. So with that, I hope these little tips help. These are things that, you know, again, these are things that I had to sort of find on my own through a lot of trials and errors. I'm sure some of you have your own tips to sort of accomplish your own resolutions. Go ahead and put them down in a comment box. Hit like if you enjoy the video, as well as subscribe. And don't let me know how you're doing on your resolutions this year. I've got a few that I'm going to be posting to my blog site, drtrot.com, in the coming days. And here's to seeing less of you in the new year.